getting into that now. So I don't know what the exact date is, but it was within the last week. Stevie Richards does post almost every day on his channel. Um, Basically, he's got the way he does is he changed his channel. He had the wrestling analytics channel where he kind of broke down just different moves and whatnot. And it was really interesting how he did that, and really informative how he does it. But now he changed it to just the Stevie Richards show, which is more of a podcast, but and does a variety of different things. He's got a co-host now who I've seen before in other podcasts on the YouTube world. But he kind of mixes up what he talks about, and one of the things he did do was what would he do for an AEW roster split? So I had to go back and watch the video again to see to put in a list for him of who he drafted for each show, what he mentioned, and things of that nature. The couple of thoughts I had right away from this, he really did not have he didn't do anything with Collision really, outside the fact that outside of like three or four wrestlers I think he mentioned that possibly to be on there, but he didn't do how he did Rampage and Collision. I mean, of Dynamite, where he picked like 15, 16 wrestlers, and everybody else was kind of sitting there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to list out who he picked for the two shows he did do, and the couple of names that he mentioned for elsewhere. So for Dynamite, he had Adam Copeland, Keith Lee, Malachi Black, Dustin Rhodes, Killswitch / Luchasaurus, MJF, Big Bill, the Young Bucks, Mercedes Moné, which he only mentioned two women's wrestlers in the entire video. He said he was supposed to do another video on just for the women, but he kind of put the champions in there. Lance Archer, Danhausen, Jeff Jarrett, Tony Storm, Jack Perry, Hook, and later in the video he kind of mentioned Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, he also mentioned that Swerve would be on all the shows as the world champion. And I kind of assumed that Tony Storm would have been the same thing, being that she's the women's world champion. But
he said yeah.
What?
He said yes.
Yes. But he kind of had it broken down so well what kind of show each one was going to be. And Dynamite was kind of like a mismatch of everything. But Rampage, he said it was going to be an ECW / Attitude Era style show where it was kind of like a Crash TV version. And that roster consisted of Jon Moxley, Darby Allin, Eddie Kingston, Kenny Omega, Samoa Joe, The Acclaimed, Billy Gunn, Top Flight, FDR, Christian Cage, Jay Lethal, Bryan Danielson, Shibata, Okada, Will Ospreay, and later in the video he mentioned the Lucha Brothers. So his idea was to make this kind of a, Crash. At one point he said kind of the rated R show, which is like all extreme, more hardcore wrestling, more ECW style, and etc. Collision, he mentioned it was going to be a morning show for 2 hours, and he also kind of mentioned that it was going to be more the developmental show, as far as wrestlers on their developing characters. and it was more character orientated, like, which was, I also kind of thought was interesting, being that you would think of for something that he kind of said a family friendly show. I would have thought he would have put Danhausen on that show, and not Dynamite. So that was so he had 17 regulars on there, technically 16 if you count on Dynamite. If you count the fact that Tony Storm and Swerve are actually going to be on all the shows. He mentioned 3 authority figures, which was Chris Jericho, Tony Khan, and Nigel McInnes. I'm not sure how he got Nigel McInnes in that, but it's an interesting thought as well. I don't know what happened to Christopher Daniels and all this. I think he also said something about he wanted Lance Archer and the Luchasaurus / Kill Switch to be a tag team, as well. I think Keith Lee and Will Hobbs at one point. But he also said Will Hobbs would be on Collision for a month to develop a new character. Then he said the Ring of Honor, as far as the AEW main rosters go, he had Brody King, Carly Castagnoli, Mark Briscoe, Roderick Strong, Bruce, and Daniel Garcia to go to the Ring of Honor. Miro, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Wardlow are pretty much gone. And everybody else is kind of just floating around. Which I thought was kind of strange, because he talked about Adam Page, he talked about Pac, but he didn't place him on a brand. He just kind of said, what are they doing with them? But the other thing you mentioned, though, was also that he had Kenny Omega on Rampage and the Bucks on Dynamite because he wanted somebody from the Elite on each brand. He also wanted a good mixture of veteran guys and young guys so they can learn off each other, which makes total sense when you explain it that way. But also looking at it, it's like clearly Rampage is also where the tag title is going to be the focal point. Because outside of the Young Bucks, like all the main tag teams, are on Rampage in some way. And when you mentioned later the Lucha Brothers, that's Lucha Brothers, FDR, Top Flight, and the Acclaim are all on Rampage, and Dynamite just has the Young Bucks and the pairing that he's trying to put together. Okay.
So, I'm more interested in like the concept of what he did and how he split the roster up more so than like the people he chose.
Right.
Because that's more on the line of like what we always talked about and what we were planning to talk about. I really think Stephen Richards like stole our idea. He might be watching the stream. Because we've been trying to talk about how to fix AEW for like a really long time.
We have.
But like the thing I find interesting is within the company, which is like what we always suggest that everybody does, is like when you have like multiple shows that go on during the week, is you create a different brand within your brand. You create a distinct different feel between the shows where like Dynamite would remain like Dynamite with like a fixed up roster and like a different focus. And where he took Rampage and he made Rampage like the new ECW, and then he was going to have like a family friendly kind of like Saturday morning show or something. You're saying like akin to what the WWF had back in the day.
Right.
And like I think that is brilliant. Like I think that is genius. Like one of the reasons why like Collision like jumped off to such a great start is because it was a different show. It was the CM Punk show. It was the show with all the outcasts who didn't play good with the elite. Now it's just another AEW show, and AEW is doing the same thing that WWE is doing, where every show feels the same. You know, like what's the difference? Like, what's the difference between watching Raw and watching SmackDown, except for the people that's on it? You know, like the writing is so similar, like you really couldn't like tell them apart. You know, like if you were somebody who didn't know the brand split and you didn't know like the difference between who was on Raw and who was on SmackDown, and then somebody just like spliced it up and showed you like different scenes of Raw and SmackDown, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
No.
Which if they're on brand, you know, like what they're doing is working, and like they're really jumping right now. So like they can do that, but when you have like somebody like AEW, you need something to set you apart, and you need something to feel different. And as soon as he started talking about what he was going to do with Rampage, I was like, that is it right there on the money. Like that is the move. Like that is what you do. That's what WWE had with the original Black and Gold NXT.
Yes, it did.
You know, like you had an alternative to your brand inside of your brand. Like that's what you do. That's what WWE could have had when they brought ECW back. You know, but Vince, right?
Right.
You know, and roster and drug problems, whatever. Like whatever you want to blame it on, like they had the potential. They had the potential. Like they were coming red hot off of those 2 one-night stands.
Right.
And it was there. It was right there for them to grab it. And somehow it slipped through their fingers. So 100% absolutely agree that they should do something with the other shows to make them unique and to make them stand out. That's how you get people to watch. And it might be, I'm not going to say like it's going to happen immediately, because you have to get people interested and you got to get people to pay attention. Like people have to look over there and see what it is first before it catches their attention. But like that's 100% like the move that should happen. And AEW has an advantage over WWE, where WWE is probably going to get more raunchy when they get on Netflix. Like AEW is already like pushing the envelope on like what you can do on like TV.
Right.
So like they can go ahead and just start doing that with, you know, like whatever, like with Rampage or something like that. But it's up to Andy, like more violence, more weapons, like, you know, more cursing, more blood. That's why he made Moxley like his first choice to go over on Rampage. You know, and have Dynamite be like the flagship, you know, like wrestling show. Like you put wrestlers on there, you know, and then like you get hardcore and you get like ECW like over there on Rampage, where you have like brawlers and you have brutes, but then you also have like high flyers and technical wrestlers, you know, and you have like that whole like that melting pot of talent, and you put it all together.
Because he also mentioned like the Lucha Brothers, like having the Lucha style wrestlers that they have, which they got, you know, they had somebody on Coach, I think, debuted too, but like I had like an 8-minute Lucha match like to kick off the show. Because like the other thing he kind of really delved into is like how long are the matches going to be on the show. He said he preferred long matches happen on the pay-per-views, and kind of make the matches on TV shorter, but like full with a lot of action in it.
And that's kind of like how WWE used to be back in the day, where, you know, and that was a suggestion. Like that was actually a question I asked Cornette that I don't think they ever read on air. Like I sent in an email and I asked them, you know, like do they think that like having like jobber matches, like bringing like jobbers back and like more frequently, like, you know, how would that help like pace out the show, and how would that like help like save the talent? You know, because right now, like you have like people on Raw who are kind of, you know, like you got like mid card people kind of being like jobbers,
right?
You know, but like they're so much better than that. You know, so I'm like you're kind of like straddling a line here, where like you either make people jobbers, so that you can like really showcase like your top talent, or you find something meaningful for like these mid carders to do, so that they don't feel like jobbers. Like pick a lane.
Exactly.
And I think if you went back to like the Saturday morning like WWE shows, where it's like like they fought like local talents and they fought enhancement talents or whatever. It's like Razor Ramon would come out and like just like beat up some chump, like while the commentators are like advertising like his match against the 1-2-3 Kid at the Royal Rumble or whatever. It's like, well, like look at how awesome Razor Ramon is. Like look how he dispatched that guy, and like he's defending the Intercontinental title. Like that's stuff. Like I think like if you do it right, it can still work, and like it saves you from like overexposing like your stars. Where like WWE had the bad problem with like the win loss thing.
Yep.
And like how to protect people and like all that stuff, like that's still a problem. Because like you can't keep having squash matches. Like you have to have definitive wins and losses. But you want to protect everybody. But like you're putting people out there like they're jobbers. Like you can't protect them if they're jobbing.
Right.
So like that would be a solution. Like shorter matches, and maybe bring in like the NXT is I switched from AEW to WWE, but like NXT is the building brand, like it's the training brand or whatever. Like AEW has that too, and like they just had a local wrestler, like Mariah May just like beat up a local wrestler or Dynamite.
Well, they had two driver matches, just the Pac match with a squash match too.
Right. So like there's a way like to bring that back and utilize that in modern like wrestling TV. So that when you have like your big shows, like what was like, was there a theme for like, was like the whole entire show blood and guts? Like was that the theme for like last night's Dynamite?
It was pretty much what it was built around.
Okay, so it wasn't like a winner is coming or like anything like that. No. Fighter Fest or nothing.
It was just blood and guts.
So like when you have like those special, like especially because like AEW is trying to get to the point where they can like have more like pay-per-views like during the year. Mm-hmm. When they have like those special like kind of shows like Fighter Fest or whatever, if you have like if you can like space out like more matches with jobbers and like highlighting and showcasing like your stars and having them like just like ball through people, and then like that shortens the matches. There's less chance for injury, and there's less like exposure of having people like fight certain people. Build that anticipation for the pay-per-views or the special shows.
Right. So going back to Stevie Richards' videos. Like, I definitely agree with the fact that I love the fact that he had each show had its own identity. He given he gave all three shows their own what their purpose is. I'm not 100% sure of if I would go with the exact same rosters he had picked. Because he mentioned people that get used almost all the time. He mentioned the Gun Club. They're not giving a whole lot. They're not giving much. I'm like, well, I don't know. They're getting a lot more than a lot of other people are getting. I mean, they had this whole thing with the six-man the trio title for a while until recently when Jay White got hurt. But like they were featured every single week on at least one of the shows. So like they were getting way more consistent television time. And to me, like I feel like if you're gonna make Collision this family show, I think it'll make more sense if you try to go with like their Orange Cassidy's or like Danhausen if he's still with the company. I thought he left, but like he would make more sense for a family show because he's such a character. So I was I probably would have moved him to Collision over Dynamite if that's what the whole purpose of Collision is going to be. Is this family friendly, all about the character stuff. But like, you gotta find a spot for like Adam Page. You would think. Um, I know he just came back, so like clearly, like they're building him back up to be eventually have that match with Swerve. Um, like there's a lot of people out there that kind of like, what do you do with these guys? They just, because Richard also mentioned that how AEW got, trio and stable happening. You're trying to break a lot of that up. I'm like, which is true. Um, but like he's got every single stable pretty much broken up. So I'm not sure how I feel about that part. That they like almost every stable was pretty much broken up completely. Like I think it'd be okay to at least have at least one or two main stables within the company, but like I get rid of them all. I wouldn't think.
Well, he more or less left the elite together, and he kept like Christians. But no, he separated Kill Switch, but he then later said that Christian and his group can stay together. So like I don't know if he realized that he did that during the video.
Well, he got the Bucks and Jack Perry together, but Okada's on the other brand. So I guess it's still technically could be a trio elite group, but like the gauntlets and stuff like that. Like I probably but it's like he didn't do any of the women. So I'm curious how he's gonna do the women.
Yeah, he only did the champs. He didn't do anybody else.
Right. I think he's supposed to do a video on the women. He said he's gonna do at some point. So like I'd be interested to see how he breaks the women down. But I thought it was definitely a very interesting video, though. But the other part is like being more realistic anyway. If if that's something that AEW was willing to negotiate in their new deal, is can they move closer to the morning? And what kind of number would they get in the morning show?
Are there any Turner networks that would want a morning wrestling show?
That's another question. Like, I know it's all fancy, but you kind of have to think about those things. But I was kind of interested to see, like, okay, um, like this is something that I will have to spend the rest until hopefully by Sunday I have my own of how I would have divided the rosters up and like who I put where kind of thing. Um, you have to look at the AEW roster website, which is take a minute because I think you said in the video like 117 people in there on the roster.
And you can't click on anybody. So like there are some people whose names I saw, and I was like, I'm not really sure who they are. And when I tried to click on them, nothing happened, and I realized that you can only click on the champions. Like anybody roster who isn't a champion, you cannot click on them on the All Elite Wrestling webpage. There's nowhere else on the website to get information on anybody who isn't a champion.
That's only an interesting challenge too.
That's a really dumb thing to do for a professional company who has a website where like you have a roster page and you want people to know more about your roster, but then you don't allow them to get any information about your roster.
It's like with WWE, you click on the whole profile.
And they give you like the profile, they give you like pictures and videos.
So like what I'm probably gonna try to do between now and next and now, I'm trying to come up with uh my own brand split, if you will, and I'm sure a lot of it may be the same. Um, but it'll be I'm sure a few names will be on different rosters and whatnot because the way I see it, look at the names now and knowing the names that are still out there as far as under contract, but they didn't have a placement, they can easily make all three brands have enough star power to balance it all out. Like even if Collision was not a morning show, I'm sure there's a way to make it have its own identity that's different from Dynamite and Rampage. Because he said Collision to be the developmental brand, the developmental show for talent, but I'm like, that kind of should be what Ring of Honor is, in my opinion, more than one of their main shows on television. That's just me, though.
I think if there's a way to do it, they should bring Ring of Honor to TV and get rid of one of the other two. Have Ring of Honor exist as Ring of Honor.
ROH Collision.
Or just Ring of Honor.
Well, would you call a TV show just Ring of Honor?
What was it called before?
What, Ring of Honor shows?
Yeah.
Didn't they have a name? I thought it had some kind of a. Maybe it was. Right now, it's just the Iron Club.
Huh?
Right now it's the Iron Club. The Iron Club. You gotta go to get it.
Oh.
I think it was just Ring of Honor TV though.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Trimming is spicier.
Let's make they replaced Rampage, right? Because like the guy wanted Collision. Like that was like his show that he wanted with CM Punk. So keep Collision, get rid of Rampage, make Rampage ROH.
Would you book it the same as how he had it though, or would you make Collision that ECW like show?
Well, it's the Saturday show. It's the weekend. I don't know if that's better or worse when you think about like the rating and like exposing like like kids to it or whatever. I don't think kids are susceptible to anything now. Like the kids nowadays, like they watch everything. So I don't think like watching like a hardcore wrestling show on a Saturday night would mess them up any. So like you can make that the hardcore, the ECW show. Collision on Saturday nights, ROH on Fridays. Dynamite on Wednesdays.
I could probably work with that too.
Because right there, like that's already doing the job that we're talking about, which is where you have Dynamite. Dynamite can be Dynamite. Dynamite can be the best version of Dynamite it can be. ROH already something different. And then you turn Collision into like a hardcore, like more like Smash Mouth in your face, like type of show. There's already like 3 distinct different wrestling shows under one banner.
So when you balance the roster, if what you got to think about each wrestling style and see who fits the best where. I'll probably spend my time till Sunday to see what I come up with. Which would be probably fun. And maybe a headache too, somewhere in there.
Well, it'll be a little easier than splitting like the whole AEW roster between 3 shows if you just split them between 2 shows.
Right.
And I know he moved some people to ROH, but it'd be interesting. I got a project that I want to work on, but I got like so many other things I'm supposed to be working on. But I'm gonna, because I got my Excel up, I'm gonna mess around with it. I'll tell you about it the closer I get to finishing it, and it'll be something we could probably get some people together and do on stream. That'd be pretty cool. I just gotta work out the logistics, and I gotta, get it all together.
Right on. I do like also the idea that he had Chris Jericho more an authority figure than being a wrestler at this point. Because, his learning tree kind of could probably fit into that really well, but at the same time, like, Jericho only having the occasional match instead of being out there weekly probably would help Jericho out a lot better than he would be willing to admit, I think.
I mean, it's still up to him, though. I mean,
I know it is, but like I said, willing to admit. So, anything else you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything else happening in the wider world of wrestling. Like I haven't heard any more rumors about Shane McMahon getting signed to AEW.
But Buddy Matthews signed a new contract with AEW.
Yeah, I saw that. That was depressing.
So when you think about this, you got to factor him into the one of the show now, knowing that he's going to still be there for a while.
He did talk about like some people that are being wasted who Tony should just let go and let them go somewhere else. Like he did mention that. Stevie Richards, that is.
Yeah, he did.
People like Miro and I think what's his face is WWE bound anyway, but
he had Miro.
People.
He mentioned Miro first. Then he said Brian Cage.
Yeah.
Then Ricky Starks, he mentioned, and then Wardlow.
Like I don't know what's going on with Wardlow, but like everything he said about them was accurate. Like Wardlow was like could have been like the next Goldberg, like not in like skill wise, Wardlow can wrestle, but and like the build that he had and the momentum that he had breaking off from MJF, and like they cooled him off. Like anytime Miro had like some momentum going, like something happening, he got cooled off. Ricky Starks was being positioned to be like one of the next faces of the company. Like he was up there. Like he had like the attention. The crowd was behind him, and then like you said, like they paired him with Big Bill, which like Stevie Richards was like, well, why would they, like, what was the reason? Like, why was he paired with him? Like, what was the reason that you put those two together? And I'm sitting here, like, I'm listening to the video. I'm like, there's no reason. That's why it didn't work. It didn't make sense. It's like, why were they together? It's just weird.
It was.
Like, that's what AEW does a lot. Like, so where you were talking about, like, he broke up so many of the stables. I'm like, well, a lot of those stables need to be broke up. I ain't gonna say all of them.
But some of them did.
Because some of them, like when you look at like the stables that Jericho ends up in, like this stable that he's in now, it's like it's clown shoes. Like what is like the little sawed off like cowboy dude, and you got like the Big Bill. Like it's like the what they call it the group in WWF back in the day. The Luna Vachon and like the Giant Gorga and the Oddity. Yeah.
The Oddities.
It's like the Oddities. I'm like, make it make sense. Full ready.
It became one of those things though, was like especially Jericho stables where they just kinda the people involved in these stables kind of just goes into this black hole of trap and just trapped because nobody really ever benefits from being in a Jericho stable.
I mean, look at the Firm.
Who remembers that?
Like it came and it went and it was stupid and we want to forget it. Like everybody doesn't need to be in a faction. Like everybody doesn't need to be in a group. Like develop your talent. Like there's some factions like when they show up. Like, do I still have the roster page pulled up? Hold up. Who is one? It's a faction, and like they probably don't even like wrestle on TV, which is why it was weird to me. Where's that guy? Where's the guy? Was Avalon? Like wherever Avalon is in the group he's in. Like when I saw what it was called, I'm like, what is this?
The Undisputed Kingdom, which that's a pointless group now. It's been a pointless. Let's see. The Righteous.
The Wingmen.
The what?
Peter Avalon is a member of the Wingmen.
Yeah.
And I think he's the only one mentioned on the roster page as being a part of the Wingmen. And like I try to click on him to go, what is that faction? I cannot click on him because he's not a champion.
The Dark Order is still a thing.
What is the Spanish Announce Project? There's at least 2 wrestlers on the roster page who are part of the Spanish Announce Project.
Is that a tag team?
You're don't ask me, I'm asking you.
I'm pretty sure it's a tag team.
Why is it called that? Why is that the name? Okay, Serpentico is one, and let me find the other person that said was part of that. I know it's a luchador. Drilistico. No, that's La Faction. Uh, in I'm not even trying that. La Faction he's part of that.
That was Rouge. I remember that.
So are they all hurt, or like what's going on with that? Angelico is part of Spanish Announce Project. Like, what kind of group is that, and why are they called that?
I don't know.
And then there has to be some crossover with ROH because we got Anthony Ogogo over here. Remember him? Like he's still a thing. Anthony Ogogo is part of Shane Taylor Promotions. So I'm like, oh yeah, Shane Taylor. Like he showed up and did some matches, but he's not part of AEW, is he? So like, why is Anthony Ogogo over here on the AEW roster as part of like Shane Taylor? What did I say? Promotions. But I'm like, I don't see anybody else that's part of that faction on the AEW roster page.
He too was there for a while.
He's not on the roster though. Not this one that I got pulled up, like on the AllEliteWrestling.com site.
That's so weird.
Yeah, so like, why even do that? Like, why list him as part of a faction if he's the only person on the roster that's part of a faction? Why is he? Oh no, it's somebody else. Lee Moriarty is part of the Shane Taylor promotions, but no Shane Taylor.
So like you look at this roster, and you're like, who the fuck is Shane Taylor? Why did he have?
Exactly. You're like, wait, Sean Dean? No, Shane Taylor. No, not him. Stokely Hathaway? No, Shane Dean.
Like you don't know who that is? Like no, explain. He's the guy with the had a production group.
And then, like I said, you can't click on
Anybody.
Anthony Ogogo to find out what is Shane Taylor Productions, because you cannot click on anybody who isn't a champion.
I forgot Tony Nese was even still there.
Yeah, he's a premier athlete. Like that's also a stable, and more proof that they have too many of these stables.
Like, when was the last time you seen him?
See, him, Arya Davari, and it was somebody else I just saw. Like some guy that looked way too like angry and aggressive to be part of their group.
But like, I'm talking about when you last time you seen him on TV.
Josh Wood, the technical beast. Josh Woods is part of the premier athletes. Like this dude is like jacked and like growling at the camera, and he's got fangs. And then you got Arya Davari, and you got Tony Nese like sitting here smiling with shades and like track jackets on. And this dude is like a werewolf.
And then you got Mark Sterling, the manager.
Yeah, well, yeah. When you scroll down and find Mark Sterling.
But like, you think about that stable. Like, when's the last time you seen any of those members of the stable?
I don't know.
Nick Camarado is still there too. Because yeah, he was been seen recently too. Big Shotty, Lee Johnson.
Do you call him Shotzi?
Big Shotty.
When did Satnam Singh become part of the broadcast team?
What?
Satnam Singh is part of the broadcast team. I can't click on it to confirm it because he doesn't have a belt.
I don't. I want to know the same. I want to know the same what show he does. I swore he was a wrestler.
He's on the broadcast team. apparently.
But he's not on the roster page. Except for as a broadcaster, like, huh, a broadcaster who wrestles. What is he, Jerry Lawler?
I mean, they got Taz and Nigel McGuinness and Excalibur on the broadcast team, so.
But, like, none of those guys actually wrestle right now.
Neither does Jerry Lawler.
But he did.
So did they.
But that's why they're still broadcasters. That's also a weird one that I just noticed that who's not also on the roster page.
Who's that?
Johnny TV?
Oh, he's on there.
Where?
You probably missed it because you couldn't click on him to get any more information. He's on there.
Oh, it's 0-4 record he's got right now. Found him. I
But at least
swear.
they give you the win-loss record. Like, I'll say that.
What?
At least they give you the win-loss record.
I swear Jay Lethal and Jay White are trying to impersonate one another's facial expressions. Hey, no.
You get back up to the Jays. I was in broadcast. Yeah, neither one of them liked the cameraman. And apparently John Silver really liked the cameraman. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on. What? Let me make sure. Let me make sure I'm not mistaken. Let me just scroll down through this list again because I'm tired of looking at this list. But let me make sure before I say this that I'm not making a mistake. Because that kind of jumped out at me, and like that is very odd. Okay, no, okay, well there's okay, never mind. I was tripping.
You found him.
But yeah, that's why you set up a website to give people more information about your roster and your talent. Like maybe that's affecting ratings and live attendance numbers. Like I would have came to the show, but I couldn't click on. Let me just drop down to a random name. I couldn't find any. Because you already said his name. Who? Give me a random. Give me a random name off of this freaking roster.
Paul Turner.
Well, I went to the P's too. Like yeah, like I was gonna buy tickets to go to the show, but like I didn't know who this Preston Vance was, and like I tried to click on him, and I couldn't get any information. My seat will be empty.
I couldn't identify any referees, so like I couldn't watch the show either. Because if I don't know who these referees are, then I don't know who to blame when they do make a bad call. And that just messes up everything.